20 warships, one forbidden vessel. Captain D built the Celestial Hammer to protect the innocent, but the Galactic Council calls it too dangerous to exist. Surrounded, outgunned, ordered to surrender. Then a distress signal tears through the void, raiders murdering a transport crew in cold blood. D doesn't hesitate. He unleashes the hammer's full fury and obliterates 3 ships in a single breath. The Council watches in stunned silence as he rescues one survivor, a young woman clutching a data chip, her family slaughtered for what's inside. She whispers through tears, "They killed everyone for this." D stares at the chip. The Council fleet closes in, and somewhere in the encrypted data lies a conspiracy that could ignite a war. What's on that chip, and can the most powerful warship in the galaxy protect the one person who knows the truth?
The warning lights painted the bridge of the Celestial Hammer in angry red as captain. They watched the Galactic Council's fleet approach. 20 warships surrounded his vessel, their weapons charged, but not yet firing. He stood with his arms crossed, his jaw set in that stubborn way that had gotten him both promoted and court-martialed twice in his career. The communications panel chirped, and the face of Council Admiral Torvis appeared on the screen, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence with barely contained fury. "Captain Day of Earth," Torvis said, his translator making his words sound clipped and harsh. "You are ordered to power down your vessel immediately and surrender for violation of the Warfare Limitation Treaty. The Celestial Hammer is deemed too dangerous for any single species to possess." Day wanted to laugh. 3 months ago, humanity had unveiled the Celestial Hammer at the Galactic Technology Summit. The ship was humanity's masterwork, a vessel that combined Earth's most advanced weapons, technology with a new fusion core that could power shields strong enough to withstand a supernova. The aliens had applauded politely during the demonstration. Then they held an emergency session and voted unanimously to ban it. Humanity, the newest member of the Galactic Council, had built something that terrified every other species in the galaxy. "With respect, Admiral," Day replied, keeping his voice level. "The Celestial Hammer is a defensive vessel. We built it to protect our colony worlds from pirate raids. You cannot outlaw a ship for being too good at its job." Torvis's scales rippled with agitation. "Your vessel can obliterate entire fleets. It destabilizes the balance of power. This is not a request, Captain. Stand down, or we will open fire." Day's first officer, Lieutenant Hyan, touched his shoulder. "Sir, they have us surrounded. Even the Hammer cannot take on 20 ships at once." Before Day could respond, the tactical officer shouted, "Captain, distress signal, close range. A transport vessel under attack by raiders, 2 light minutes from our position." The main screen shifted to show a small civilian ship being torn apart by weapons fire. 3 raider vessels circled it like sharks, their distinctive angular hulls marked with the symbols of the Crimson Void Gang. Day watched as an escape pod launched from the dying transport, tumbling through space as the raiders turned their guns toward it. He did not hesitate. "Helm, intercept course, maximum speed. Weapons, prepare to engage raiders." "Captain, the Council fleet," Hyung began. "Can wait," Day finished. "We are not going to watch innocent people die while we argue about treaties." The Celestial Hammer moved like a predator unleashed. The ship's advanced engines pushed it forward at speeds that made the Council vessels look like they were standing still. Within seconds, the Hammer positioned itself between the raiders and the escape pod. Day's fingers danced across his command console, bringing the ship's weapons online. The raiders, seeing an opportunity for an easy target, opened fire. Their weapons splashed harmlessly against the Hammer's shields. Day almost felt sorry for them. Almost. "Fire," he said quietly. The Celestial Hammer's main cannon spoke once. Just once. The 3 raider ships turned into expanding clouds of debris and superheated gas. The escape pod continued to drift, its occupant presumably too shocked to do anything else. "Tractor beam, bring that pod aboard," Day ordered. And someone tell Admiral Torvis that we will continue this conversation after we have secured the survivor. The Council fleet did not move to stop them. They suspected they were too stunned by what they had just witnessed. 3 ships destroyed in less than a second. This was why they feared the hammer. This was why they wanted it gone. The escape pod settled into the hammer's hangar bay with a metallic clang. They left Hyan in command and headed down to meet the survivor personally. Something in his gut told him this rescue was going to complicate his already complicated day. The hangar crew had already popped the pod's hatch by the time he arrived. A medical team stood ready with a stretcher. They pushed through them and looked inside the pod. She was young, barely into adulthood by the look of her. Her skin was a pale blue, and her eyes were large and golden, with no visible pupil. She belonged to the Velen species, he realized, one of the more reclusive races in the galaxy. Her clothes were torn and bloodied, and she clutched a small data chip in one hand, like it was the most precious thing in the universe. When she saw Day, she flinched back, her body trembling. "It is okay," Day said softly, raising his hands to show he meant no harm. "You are safe now. I am Captain Day. You are aboard a human ship." The girl's eyes went wide. "Human?" she whispered in broken galactic standard. The forbidden ship?" "The very one," Day said with a slight smile. "Can you walk? We need to get you to medical." She tried to stand, but her legs gave out. Day caught her before she fell, surprised by how light she was. She could not have weighed more than 40 kilos. Her skin was cold to the touch, and he could feel her shaking against him. "I have you," he said. "You are going to be fine." The girl looked up at him, her golden eyes searching his face for something. Trust, maybe, or hope. "My name is Lyra," she said quietly. "They killed everyone. My family, my crew, everyone." They felt something cold settle in his chest. "The Raiders?" She nodded, and tears began to stream down her blue cheeks. "They wanted this." She held up the data chip with a shaking hand. "They killed everyone for this. What is on it?" They asked. "I do not know," Lyra said. "My father gave it to me before. She could not finish the sentence. Her body shook with silent sobs. Day carried her to the medical bay himself, ignoring the stares of his crew. The ship's doctor, an efficient woman named Biora, took one look at Lyra and immediately began running scans. Day stood in the corner, watching as they worked to stabilize her. She had a fractured rib, multiple lacerations, and was severely dehydrated. But she would live. When Biora finished, she approached Day with a concerned expression. "She is in shock, Captain. She needs rest and time to process what happened. I recommend keeping her in medical for observation." "Do what you can for her," Day said. Then he returned to the bridge. Admiral Torvis was still waiting on the communications channel. His 4 eyes narrowed in suspicion. "You have delayed long enough, Captain Day. We have shown patience, but it is at an end. Will you surrender the Celestial Hammer, or must we take it by force?" Day looked at the Council fleet surrounding his ship. He thought about Lyra and medical, about her family murdered by raiders, about the data chip she clutched like a lifeline. He thought about humanity's place in the galaxy, and about the ship that had made every other species afraid of what humans could do. "Admiral," he said carefully, "I have a proposal." The tension on the bridge was thick enough to cut with a knife as Day outlined his plan. He would not surrender the Celestial Hammer, but he would accept a council observer aboard the ship. Someone who could report back that humanity was using the vessel responsibly for protection and peacekeeping, not conquest. It was a compromise, and Day hated compromises. But it was better than starting a war. Torvis considered the proposal for a long moment. His scales shifted through several colors, a sign of internal debate among his species. Finally, he spoke, The council will discuss your proposal. You will remain in this position until we reach a decision. Any attempt to leave will be considered an act of aggression. Is that understood? Perfectly, they said. The communication ended. They let out a breath he had not realized he was holding. Hyan approached him carefully. That bought us some time, sir, the lieutenant said. But what are we going to do if they reject the proposal? I honestly do not know, they admitted. He looked at the stars on the view screen, at the vast emptiness of space. Somewhere out there, raiders were still hunting innocent people. Somewhere out there, families were being torn apart. And here he was, surrounded by warships that were more concerned with the size of his guns than the lives his guns protected. But we are not giving up this ship. Not when we built it to do the right thing. He returned to Medical Bay an hour later. Lyra was awake, sitting up in bed and staring at the wall with those haunting golden eyes. When she saw him, she managed a weak smile. Captain Day, she said. Thank you. Thank you. For saving me. It is my job, Day said, pulling up a chair beside her bed. How are you feeling? Empty, she said honestly. Like there is a hole in my chest that will never be filled. She looked down at her hands. Is that normal? When you lose people you love? Yes, Day said. It is very normal. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Lyra spoke again. Why did you save me? The council fleet wanted you to surrender. You could have ignored my distress signal and focused on your own problems. They thought about how to answer that. Because that is not who humans are, he said finally. We build ships like the Celestial Hammer not to dominate others, but to protect those who cannot protect themselves. If we had ignored your signal, we would have betrayed everything this ship stands for. Lyra studied him with those intense golden eyes. You are strange, Captain. My people always said humans were dangerous, unpredictable, but you do not seem dangerous to me. We can be dangerous, Day said quietly, when we need to be, but we try to be good first. That is a nice way to live, Lyra said. She reached out and touched his hand hesitantly, her blue fingers cold against his skin. I am glad it was your ship that found me. Day felt something shift in his chest at her touch. He told himself it was just sympathy for a survivor who had lost everything. But some part of him knew it was more than that. There was something about this young Velen woman, something fragile and fierce at the same time, that called to something deep inside him. The data chip you were carrying, he said, gently changing the subject. Would you like us to examine it? Find out what your father thought was worth protecting. Lyra's hand tightened on his. Yes, she whispered. I need to know. I need to understand why they died. Day took the chip to his head of intelligence, Commander Tay, a sharp-eyed woman who could crack encryption codes in her sleep. She loaded the chip into her secure terminal while Day watched over her shoulder. The data that appeared made both of them freeze. Sir, Kay said slowly, this is a list. A list of what? Day asked, though he already had a sinking feeling he knew. Coordinates. Dozens of them. And each one is marked with a date and a name. Tay scrolled through the data. These are trafficking routes. Slave routes. The Crimson Void gang has been kidnapping civilians from remote colonies and selling them across the galaxy. This list has everything. Routes, buyers, prices, safe houses. Day felt rage building in his chest. How many people? Thousands, Tay said quietly. Over the past 5 years, thousands of people have disappeared. And this list proves where they went. Lyra's father must have been investigating them, they said. And they found out. If we turn this over to the council, we could shut down the entire operation, Tay said. But sir, some of these coordinates are in council-protected space. Some of these safe houses are on council worlds. And some of these buyer names. She pointed at the screen. Those are council officials. The implications hit Day like a physical blow. The Crimson Void gang was operating with protection from within the council itself. If they turned this over, there was no guarantee the council would act on it. Corrupt officials could bury the evidence, and the trafficking would continue. "Make a copy of everything," Day ordered, "and keep it somewhere very safe. I need to think about what we do with this." He returned to medical to tell Lyra what they had found. She listened in silence, her golden eyes growing harder with each word. When he finished, she stood up despite Dr. Bogora's protests. "I want to help," Lyra said firmly. "I want to stop them. My father died for this information. I will not let his death be meaningless." "You are in no condition to," Day began. "I am the only survivor," Lyra interrupted. "I am the witness. If you take this to the council without me, they will find ways to dismiss it. But if I am there, if I tell them what the Crimson Void did to my family, they cannot ignore it." Her voice cracked slightly. "Please, Captain, let me do this. Let me fight back." Day saw the determination in her eyes and recognized it. It was the same determination that had driven him to join Earth's Navy, the same fire that had led him to captain the Celestial Hammer despite the controversy. How could he deny her the chance to honor her father's sacrifice? "All right," he said, "but you stay on this ship where you are safe. We will bring the council to you." Admiral Torvis was not pleased when Day contacted him with a new proposal. The Admiral's scales turned a dark purple, a sign of extreme agitation. As Day explained about the data chip and what it contained, "You expect me to believe that members of the council are involved in trafficking?" Torvis demanded. "This is a serious accusation, Captain Day, which is why I have the evidence and a living witness," Day replied calmly. "Send a delegation to the Celestial Hammer. Review the data yourself. Interview the survivor. Then tell me if you think I am lying." Torvis's scales shifted through several colors. Finally, he said, "Very well. I will come personally, along with Council Investigator Prime Malek. But if this is some human trick to avoid surrendering your ship—" "It is not a trick," they said. "It is justice." 3 hours later, Admiral Torvis and Investigator Malek materialized in the Celestial Hammer's transporter room. Malek was a quintal, a species known for their obsessive dedication to truth and law. Her 6 limbs moved with precise mechanical efficiency as she followed Day to the conference room where Lyra waited. Lyra told her story with quiet strength, never breaking down, never looking away. She described her father's secret investigation, the raiders' attack, the screams of her family as they died. She showed them the data chip and walked them through each piece of evidence. By the time she finished, even Admiral Torvis looked shaken. Investigator Malek reviewed the data with the intensity of a predator hunting prey. Her multiple eyes moved independently, scanning different sections of the list simultaneously. After 2 hours, she looked up. "This evidence is authentic," she declared. "The encryption matches known Crimson Void protocols. The coordinates align with reported disappearances. And the names—" She paused, her mandibles clicking in what might have been anger. "The names include 3 council representatives and a dozen colonial governors. This is a conspiracy at the highest levels." "What will the council do?" they asked. "The council will act," Malek said firmly. "When corruption is discovered, it must be cut out like infected flesh. These individuals will be arrested and tried. The trafficking network will be destroyed." She turned her multifaceted eyes to Lyra. "Your father was a brave man. His work will save thousands of lives." Lyra nodded, tears streaming down her blue cheeks again. But this time, they thought they were tears of relief as much as grief. Admiral Torvis stood slowly. "Captain Day," he said, his voice much quieter than before. You have done the galaxy a service today. Without the celestial hammer, without your intervention, the Crimson Void would have killed this witness and destroyed this evidence. I will recommend to the Council that your ship be permitted to continue operations, with the observer condition you proposed. Thank you, Admiral, they said, as Torvis and Malek prepared to leave. The Admiral paused at the door. I have misjudged humanity, he admitted. We feared the celestial hammer because we could not imagine using such power responsibly. But perhaps that failure was ours, not yours. You built the ultimate warship, and you use it to save lives. That is not something to outlaw. That is something to admire. After they left, they found Lyra standing in the observation lounge, staring out at the stars. The Council fleet was beginning to disperse, returning to their stations now that the crisis had passed. She looked small and alone against the vast backdrop of space. How do you feel? They asked, joining her at the window. Lost, Lyra said honestly. I have nothing left. No family. No home. The ship I lived on my entire life is gone. I do not know where I am supposed to go now. They made a decision that was both completely logical and completely insane. Stay here, he said, on the Celestial Hammer. We could use someone with your knowledge of the Crimson Void network, and... He hesitated, then continued. I think you could use a place where you feel safe. Lyra turned to look at him, her golden eyes wide with surprise. You would let me stay? Even though I am not human? The Celestial Hammer was built to protect all innocent lives, they said. That includes you. Besides, he added with a slight smile, someone needs to make sure we use this forbidden ship responsibly. Might as well be someone who has seen both what we can do and why we do it. For the first time since he had pulled her from that escape pod, Lyra smiled. It was a small, fragile thing, but it transformed her face. I would like that, she said softly. Thank you, Captain Day, for saving me, for believing me, for everything. Call me Day, he said. If you are going to be part of this crew, we should use first names. Day, she repeated, testing the sound of it. It is a good name. Strong, but kind. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the stars slowly drift past. Somewhere out there, Council investigators were beginning the work of dismantling a trafficking network. Somewhere out there, families would be reunited with loved ones they thought were lost forever. And here, on the most controversial ship in the galaxy, a traumatized survivor and a stubborn captain were finding an unexpected connection. Over the following weeks, Lyra integrated into the crew of the Celestial Hammer. She worked alongside Commander Tay in intelligence, using her knowledge of the Crimson Void's operations to help track down the remaining members of the gang. She was brilliant, they realized, with an intuitive understanding of criminal psychology that made her invaluable to their operations. But more than that, she was healing. Slowly, carefully, she was learning to smile again. Day found himself spending more and more time with her. At first, he told himself it was professional necessity. She needed guidance, support, someone to help her adjust to life aboard a military vessel. But late at night, alone in his quarters, he admitted the truth. He was drawn to her in a way that had nothing to do with duty and everything to do with the way her laugh sounded like music. The way she looked at him like he was a hero from the old stories. The way she seemed to understand him without words. It was complicated. She was Velen, he was human. She was a civilian survivor, he was a military captain. Their species had different customs, different lifestyles, different biology. There were 1,000 reasons why any relationship between them was a terrible idea. And yet, one evening, they found her in the observation lounge again. It had become her favorite spot on the ship, a place where she could think and remember and process everything that had happened. She was holding a small holographic projector, and images of her family flickered in the air before her. Her father, stern and proud. Her mother, laughing at something off camera. Two younger siblings chasing each other around a transport deck. "They look happy," Day said softly, announcing his presence. Lyra did not look away from the images. "This was taken a month before they died," she said. "We had just finished a supply run to the outer colonies. My father had made a great profit, and we were celebrating. I can still hear my mother's laugh." Her voice broke slightly. "I am starting to forget the sound of it." Day sat beside her. "Tell me about them," he said. "Tell me what they were like." So she did. She talked for hours, sharing memories of a childhood spent aboard transport ships, of a father who taught her to read star charts before she could read words, of a mother who sang songs in the ancient Velen language, of siblings who annoyed her and loved her in equal measure. Day listened to every word, watching the way her face came alive as she remembered. When she finally stopped, exhausted and emotionally drained, she leaned against his shoulder without thinking. Day froze for a moment, unsure what to do. Then, carefully, he wrapped an arm around her. She fit against him perfectly, her small frame tucked into his side like she belonged there. "Thank you," she whispered, "for letting me talk about them. Everyone else on the ship looks at me with such pity. They do not know what to say. But you just listen. Sometimes listening is all someone needs," Day said quietly. Lyra tilted her head up to look at him. They were close, so close he could see the flecks of amber in her golden eyes. "You are a good man, Day," she said. "A strange, stubborn, wonderful man. I am glad the universe brought me to your ship." "I am glad too," Day admitted. His heart was pounding in his chest, and he knew he should pull away, should maintain professional distance. But he could not make himself move. Lyra's hand came up to touch his face, her cool blue fingers tracing the line of his jaw. "My people have a saying," she said softly. "In the darkness of space, we find unexpected stars. I think you are my unexpected star, Day." "Lyra," he said, his voice rough. We should not." "Why not?" She challenged gently. "Because we are different species. Because you are the captain and I am a survivor you rescued. Those are reasons other people would give. But what do you feel?" What did he feel? Day looked into her eyes and saw courage there, and hope, and something that looked very much like the emotion churning in his own chest. He thought about the thousands of reasons this was a bad idea, and the one reason it was not. He was falling in love with her. "I feel like I have been waiting my whole life to meet you," he said honestly. "And I'm terrified of what that means." Lyra smiled, that beautiful smile that transformed her whole face. "Then be terrified with me," she said. "Because I'm scared too. Scared of feeling this way. Scared of losing someone else I care about. But more scared of never taking the chance." Day made his choice. He leaned down and kissed her, soft and careful, like she was something precious that might break. She made a small sound of surprise, then melted into him, her arms wrapping around his neck. Her lips were cool against his, but the warmth between them was undeniable. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Lyra was crying again. But she was smiling too. "I did not think I would ever feel happy again," she said. "But I am happy now. Here, with you." "I am happy too," Day said, and realized it was true. Despite the controversy surrounding his ship, despite the political tensions with the council, despite all the challenges ahead, he was genuinely, deeply happy. "Whatever comes next, we will face it together. I promise." The peace did not last long. 2 days later, the Celestial Hammer received a priority distress call from a remote mining colony. The Crimson Void gang, desperate and cornered after the council's crackdown, had seized the colony and were holding 3,000 miners hostage. They demanded the return of their imprisoned leaders and safe passage out of council space. If their demands were not met within 24 hours, they would start executing hostages. The council's response was swift and cold. They would not negotiate with terrorists. They were assembling a task force to retake the colony by force, but it would take 4 days for the fleet to reach the location. The hostages would be dead long before then. Day studied the tactical situation with his senior officers. The colony was heavily defended, with the raiders' ships in orbit and armed gangs controlling the surface installations. A direct assault would result in massive casualties, both among the hostages and any rescue force. "We cannot wait for the council fleet," Lieutenant Hyan said. "Those people will die." "But we are one ship," Commander Tay pointed out. "Even the Celestial Hammer cannot assault a fortified position without support." Day looked at the star charts, his mind racing through possibilities. Then he felt a hand on his shoulder. Lyra stood beside him, her golden eyes determined. "I know the Crimson Void's tactics," she said. "They are brutal, but they are also arrogant. They think they are untouchable because they have hostages. But they have a weakness." She pointed at the display. "Their command ship is here in high orbit. If you can disable that ship, the raiders on the ground will lose coordination. They will panic. Disabling a ship without destroying it while under fire from the rest of their fleet is nearly impossible," Hyan said doubtfully. "Nearly impossible," Lyra agreed. "But not impossible for the Celestial Hammer." Day looked at her, understanding dawning. "You want us to use the ship exactly how the Council feared we would. Maximum aggression, overwhelming force. To save 3,000 innocent lives," Lyra said firmly. "Yes, that is exactly what I want." Day made his decision. Set course for the mining colony. Maximum speed. Charge all weapons and bring shields to full power. We are going to show the Crimson Void why humanity built the ultimate warship. The Celestial Hammer dropped out of faster-than-light travel like a thunderbolt from the heavens. The raider fleet barely had time to register their arrival before Day gave the order to fire. The Hammer's weapons, designed to fight entire fleets, turned the raiders' defensive line into scrap metal in seconds. Ships exploded in brilliant flashes of light, their shields collapsing like paper in a hurricane. The command ship tried to flee, but the Hammer's speed was unmatched. Day brought his ship alongside the raider vessel and unleashed a precisely calibrated electromagnetic pulse. The enemy ship's systems crashed, leaving it dead in space but intact, perfect. On the surface, just as Lyra had predicted, the raiders panicked. Without orders from their leaders, without the threat of orbital bombardment, they broke and ran. The miners, emboldened by their captors' fear, fought back. By the time Day's assault teams materialized on the surface, the battle was already won. 3,000 lives saved. 0 casualties. The Crimson Void gang broken forever. When the Council Task Force arrived 4 days later, they found the mining colony secure, the hostages freed, and the surviving raiders in custody. Admiral Torvis stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the Celestial Hammer hold position near the colony, and felt something he rarely experienced: awe. Captain Day accomplished in hours what would have taken us days and cost hundreds of lives, Investigator Malek observed. The Celestial Hammer truly is the ultimate warship. Yes, Torvis agreed. And in the hands of humanity, it is exactly what the galaxy needs. He opened a communication channel to the Hammer. Day's face appeared on the screen, looking tired but satisfied. And beside him, her hand resting on his arm in a gesture that spoke of intimacy and trust, stood Lyra. Captain Day, Torvis said, the Council has reviewed your actions. The prohibition on the Celestial Hammer is officially lifted. Humanity has proven that it can wield great power with wisdom and restraint. You have earned our trust. Thank you, Admiral, Day said. But I did not do this alone. Lyra's knowledge and courage made this rescue possible. She deserves the credit. Lyra blushed, her blue skin turning almost purple. I just wanted to help, she said quietly. Torvis's scales shifted to a warm gold color. Both of you are heroes, he said. The galaxy is safer because of what you have done. After the transmission ended, they turned to Lyra. She was crying again, but these were tears of relief and joy. We did it, she said. We saved them. All of them. We did, Day agreed. He pulled her into his arms, not caring who on the bridge might see. You were brilliant. Brave and brilliant. Lyra laughed through her tears. I had a good teacher. You showed me that even when we are broken, we can still fight. We can still make a difference. You taught me something too, they said softly. You taught me that the strongest weapons we have are not our ships or our technology. They are our connections to each other. Our willingness to fight for those we love. Is that what this is? Lyra asked, looking up at him with those golden eyes. Love? They thought about everything they had been through together. The rescue, the investigation, the growing bond between them. He thought about how she made him laugh, how she challenged him to be better, how she fit perfectly in his arms. There was no doubt in his mind. Yes, he said. I love you, Lyra. I know it is fast and complicated, and probably against several regulations. But I love you. Lyra's face shone with happiness. I love you too, Day, my unexpected star, my hero, my home. They kissed there on the bridge, surrounded by the crew who had become their family, aboard the ship that had brought them together. Outside the windows, the stars shone bright and eternal, witnesses to a love that transcended species and circumstances. The galaxy had feared the celestial hammer because they saw it as a weapon of conquest, but Day and Lyra knew the truth. The ultimate warship was not built to destroy. It was built to protect, to save, to give hope to those who had lost everything. And sometimes, in the darkness of space, it brought two lonely souls together and gave them a reason to believe in love again. Months later, Day stood in his quarters aboard the Celestial Hammer, adjusting his dress uniform in the mirror. Today was important. Today, the Council was officially recognizing the Hammer's crew for their actions at the mining colony. There would be ceremonies, speeches, probably more politicians than he wanted to deal with. But he would endure it all because Lyra would be by his side. The door chimed, and she entered without waiting for permission. They had moved past such formalities weeks ago. She wore a traditional velen dress, a flowing garment of silver and blue that made her look like something from a dream. Her golden eyes sparkled as she looked at him. You clean up nicely, Captain, she teased. And you are the most beautiful thing I have ever seen. Day replied honestly. Lyra crossed the room and fixed his collar, which he had managed to button wrong. Nervous? She asked. Terrified, he admitted. Public speaking is not my strength. Just be yourself, Lyra said. Tell them the truth. That is all anyone can ask. The ceremony was held on the Council's main station in a grand hall that could hold thousands. Representatives from every member. Species attended, along with the miners they had saved, who insisted on being there to thank their rescuers in person. Day gave his speech, keeping it short and honest, crediting his crew and especially Lyra for the mission's success. When he finished, the hall erupted in applause. But Day only had eyes for Lyra, who stood in the front row, crying and smiling at the same time. Afterward, at the reception, they were surrounded by well-wishers. The miners wanted to shake Day's hand, to hug Lyra, to express gratitude that words could barely contain. One of them, an old Quintal woman, took Lyra's hands in her 6 limbs and said, "You saved my daughter's life. How can I ever repay you?" "By living well," Lyra said gently. "By being happy. That is all the payment I need." As the evening wore on, Day and Lyra slipped away from the crowd, finding a quiet balcony that overlooked the station's vast interior gardens. They stood together, her hand in his, watching the artificial sunset paint the sky in shades of amber and rose. "What happens now?" Lyra asked. "The celestial hammer is no longer forbidden. The crimson void is gone. What do we do next?" Day pulled her close. "Whatever we want," he said. "The galaxy is full of people who need help, who need heroes. We keep going, keep fighting, keep making a difference." "Together?" Lyra asked, though she already knew the answer. "Always together," Day promised. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. "I know our species have